1, 2, 3, 4.
In this podcast, you will hear Knights of Vader. Knights of Vader includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not ray guns. We can't truly prepare you for the jump that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try. So here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, canon, love they fight. I know that we are just musicians hired, and their time is up. So here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
A big thank you to An Insperiority Complex for providing our theme song. It is January 6th, 2022. My name is Zach Weber, and I am joined by Chris Porteous.
Hey, happy to be here to talk about black pumpkins that grow under the sand.
He took it right out of my mouth, folks. The man who coined this idea a full week in advance, Russ Ryan.
McClunky. So that's what I called that. I was right. They're not burying little bottles of water. That's ridiculous.
And Joe Yazzo.
Hey, how are you?
Yes, I am back. We are back to talk about Boba's Novella, Chapter 2. Guys, where do we begin with this? There's so many jumping off points. Do we pick up exactly from last week's episode where Russ gets vindicated, or any other ideas?
Guess we could do that. Last week, Chris had us all give numbers, so I think we have to stick with that. And I gave it a low last week. I really low. I'll give this one like 8 or 9. This was just fun to watch.
All right, 8, yeah, 8 or 9, 8 or 9. That's
Zach's like, nope.
I like the pause.
Okay.
Chris doesn't know what to do for a split second. He's like, it's like, okay, how am I going to respond to this?
Well, no, I had a very interesting viewing experience for this. Like, I'll say right out of the gate, I liked it way better than the first episode. I had a little interruption while I was watching it, and I paused it shortly after the spoiler alert, Siamese huts showed up. They are attached, right? That's what we're meant to believe.
No, they're just very close.
But you know, they have two distinct colors, so it is weird that they're attached. But so I paused it right after the beginning of that little interaction, and I'm like, if this is the first like 5 or 10 minutes, like this episode's going to be insane. Now, it wasn't quite as insane as that first 10 minutes led me to believe, but I still really liked it a lot, and I had fun with it. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
That's good. It was good.
All right, Joe, go ahead.
I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I do like the fact that it wasn't so cutty like the first episode, where it was. I know that they're basically flashbacking when he goes back to the back tank, and it's.
Hold on, Joe. I'd hate to interrupt, but I did come up with a term with that. We're going to call that flashback-this.
Flashback-this. That actually works really well. You should trademark that, Russ.
I think
Or
I just
they use
did.
it. There you go. Legal Zoom. No, but it seemed to flow a lot better for me watching it that way, and it gave you some sense of the story. It was more complete, especially at the time, the second half of the. Actually, I would say probably the second 2/3 of the show.
All right. So I finally can give my opinions on this, which Chris kind of heard a brief snippet of last night, and I'm going to bring the clunky food analogy into it. This show so far, it reminds me of a steak at like a high-end chain restaurant. That's probably the best way I can describe it. I think numerical ratings are kind of arbitrary, so I'm not going to do that. I think it's compelling enough. It's engaging. That first episode felt like a typical serialized drama, like first episode. And I'm like, okay, like it got me there. Like I was intrigued. Like it went by really, really quick. Like as soon as those credits hit, I was like, wow, like we're done already. So that's always good. Like if something kind of keeps you going, so like you want more, which I think that was the intent of the first episode. I was genuinely delighted that we did not have a Baby Yoda hook. There wasn't something in here that was gonna like hook the audience and make it and just become like the weird calling card of the series going forward. I like that they played this one more kind of a laid back. But no, this second episode, I thoroughly enjoyed it again. The moment in the courtyard outside the mayor's office or mayor's, where you want to call it, town square, with the two huts and the Wookiee bounty hunter who has a name it's a fantastic Star Wars name.
Oh, what's his name?
Oh, because he's okay. This is okay. We should before we get too far into this, we have to give Zenger's thoughts. Zenger was not able to join in on tonight's recording, but he sent us a review in the group chat, and we specifically asked Russ to hold off on reading it because we wanted to get his real-time reaction to what Zenger, the fever dream that Zenger clearly wrote this under.
Okay, and I'm looking at it for the first time, but I'm actually looking at the second sentence, who says, do a impressions of me and great record. So I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to take my pre-workout real quick. Here we go. Okay, here you go. Great episode. The Walkie is from the comics and has worked with Boba. Best trained fight scene in all Star Wars. Weird that can be a category with multiple choices. Now, I don't know if this is some kind of riddle or a weird haiku in different parts. I'm trying to understand, but I think Chris can actually translate.
Yeah, I think what happened there is Zinger's gone on a vision quest. He's got a lizard in his nose, and he's not really sure what's going on right now.
I gotta say, yeah. If you're gonna mention that, we're gonna jump around on this. Talk about one of the most unexpected things to see in a Star Wars. I mean, we've seen little Force vision quests or whatever, but not straight up, almost indigenous culture, peyote kind of trip into the woods with a tree and everything like that. That was totally unexpected and just wild.
I mean, I guess we're sort of cutting to the end here a little bit, but like the big question is, did the tree actually exist? He brought a piece of it back. Do we have regular trees on Tatooine? What's going on with that? I also didn't think that a gaffy stick was like, that'd be pretty fragile compared to what like we see the damage it deal out. It's like slightly burned, shaved down stick. I thought it was more robust than that, but they do add a lot of metal adornments on it and such. But I think the big standout for me in this episode is that the first few minutes up till the standoff with the huts in the courtyard. So this Wookiee's name is ridiculous.
His name is Black Chrysanthemum.
Oh.
It's fine if Wookiees want to just state the color of their fur before their as part of their name as like a prefix if they want to. But this is the first time we've seen that. I am not familiar with the Dr. Aphra comics, but I've seen plenty of artwork of this character before, so I recognized him.
I did too. I did recognize him, but I actually thought I have seen him in maybe like a Battlefront game or something. That might be not, but probably a comic. You're right. That definitely that Wookiee. I've seen that Wookiee before, and I was also saying,
I can't believe I was that close to a ride. Have you ever seen Chewbacca?
What is his name again? Black what?
Black Chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum. Okay.
As little as he did, and I'm sure we're gonna get more. That was probably like the best looking Wookiee I've seen in a long time. Like the ones in episode 3 are weird. Force Awakens Chewbacca has some like weird CGI face at parts. That looked pretty good. That was a great costume, and his the expressions were really coming through. However they chose to articulate that, he looked great.
I will say my kids' reaction when that Wookiee made that corner and they looked at everyone gasped in the house when that happened. And my youngest wanted to call him like Darth Baka or Darth Chewbacca or something.
But the thing about him, I think I found the most interesting is that like it was like that whole sequence felt like this, like the Star Wars magic that I feel has been lost for a while now, where like it felt like it was that Rogue One phenomenon where like it felt like a bunch of like characters just dumped into like the sandbox and like just like a new scene was being played out. it's like, oh, so like I have a Jabba the Hutt figure, Russ has a Jabba the Hutt figure. Well, we don't have two Jabbas, we have two Siamese twin Jabbas that like are new crime lords in town. And then like we have a Chewbacca, but he got like a little dirty, like someone drew like took like a Sharpie to him. So like he's not Chewbacca anymore, he's Black Chrysanthemum. And like it felt like that level of just like, oh, like just Star Wars boiled down to like its most pulpy and adventurous.
And the same kid who's doing all this, he never got a rancor, but he's gonna like trick the guy into thinking he's got it. Like, I've got Jabba's palace. Oh, I'm gonna put you in there. Did you guys actually expect some kind of monster to come out of there?
No.
I was hoping that it wouldn't be the smaller rancor from the Bad Batch.
Yes. That's what I was afraid of. I think a lot of people were worried that little rancor guy would show up.
Yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. Although this assassin, it's like they had a knife to his neck like a second earlier, but once you mention the word rancor, he's crying. I don't understand that, but I did find it sort of satisfying that there was nothing in there, and we got a nice little CGI rat cleaning his face. Because rats exist in Star Wars because they were a convenient thing to pile into Jabba's palace for Return of the Jedi. So now they're still there in CGI form. I kind of like that.
Or if it was the same rat for some reason, if they like, we got to get the same one from the spooky Halloween scene.
I'm just glad we didn't get a close-up on a CGI recreation of the skull that Luke threw at the door button just for the sake of having it in there, But I mean, I feel like the pit looked authentic. The door that the Rancor was supposed to come through looked a little bit small, but maybe I don't know, maybe I haven't watched Return of the Jedi recently enough.
The palace door, though, looked great. That just immediately, yes, I know they're pulling the nostalgia, but he lives there. That looked amazing. That was the best. And the shot of the scenery behind them, I felt like I've never seen it like that before. That was a pretty breathtaking shot.
Yeah, it looked faithfully recreated with the way that the little teeth on the bottom of the door have holes in them and the lights like coming through. That looked pretty good. I think they might have snubbed the special editions a little bit on account of in special editions the Jabba's palace front door is like 3 times bigger than it is in the original cut, and I think it's closer to the OG version here. So there might be some special edition contradictions here, but it looked, yeah, that looked awesome. Weird we still haven't seen a Bomar monk, even though they were in the first trailer. You'd think those guys would still be lurking around Jabba's palace. Like I said, the opening was really awesome. You have 3 new awesome characters coming out of nowhere, maybe 4 if you like. The mayor, just the way the mayor talked with the translator was awesome. Like, I found him reasonably threatening. It was cool. He was ominous. He had a great translation voice combined with the little cantina hammerhead rumblings. Those sounded pretty good. The only part where it sort of lost some steam with me was like, the Hutts had 20 guys out there, but they don't want a confrontation in the streets, so they literally walk away. That kind of bothered me, and then the fact that we go into a flashback for the remainder half an hour of the episode. Wasn't super crazy about that, but I completely agree with Zack that first scene up till the courtyard was just like, they should do this type of thing every week, and it would be a hit.
I don't know if it's like, I don't know if you can do that continuously, because I think it would lose its potency. No, I think, like I said, I disagree. I think this show balanced both the like back to tank flashbacks and like the current, we want chronology of where we are in Star Wars. Flashback, sorry, Russ, trademark. No, I thought that worked out nicely. Like, I really, because like I said, like at certain points, like we all know what's going to happen with the Tusken Raider thing. I think it was last week or maybe in the Eclipse trailer discussion you guys did, or I think maybe Russ brought it up and he's like, oh, like we're like, apparently Tamora Morrison made a comment like, oh, we're going to see everything Boba Fett has like ever done. And and when clearly that comment meant like, oh, we're going to see everything from like the Sarlacc pit to Tython in Mandalorian with Big Whiskey. It's that like period. And that's not to sit there segue this a little out of the episode, but I figure Chris will definitely eat this up. I never would have imagined a Boba Fett Disney proper like show would be more linked to like Boba Fett of like the prequels. Like this Boba Fett feels so disconnected from the original trilogy. Like I know we're only 2 episodes in, but like we're now what 2/7 of the way through this show. And at no point do I buy this is the guy that stood like on the bridge of the Executor and like sat there, like did all this and on like Cloud City, like shot at Luke Skywalker. I do not buy this is the same character. Not saying that this character is like any less interesting. It just feels like a new character than anything else because like we have no reason to attach this to Boba Fett, like outside of the fact that like his name is in the title.
Maybe he acts different around Vader. He's got to like play it super cool. Like he's got to be he's like on the job then. And we're seeing the more of the Boba Fett that's not around. I could buy it more as the one from Return of the Jedi. Maybe. How about that?
Like again, I
flying
don't know.
around like, messing up,
Well, no, but like, I feel like Boba Fett is such again, this weird anomaly as a character. And it goes back to that documentary they did on Disney Plus Day, like Under the Helmet. And basically like the low key thesis of that documentary is that like, oh, Boba Fett is kind of an enigma as like a character in like pop culture and cinema. He's really just like a fantastic costume and a blank canvas. And what they're trying, and they're deliberately, and this is, you can tell this is intentional either on Favreau or
Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you. Robert Rodriguez's part is that like they don't want to touch that original trilogy because that is such a blank canvas that you can never it's that like Hitchcockian thing of like, oh, like the idea of what's behind the curtain and not knowing is infinitely more spectacular than actually pulling it back. So I respect the decision. It's just like I don't know. Like Boba Fett feels so reserved in the original trilogy, and yet like in this he's so hands-on in a way that I just didn't expect.
I don't think it's strongly connecting with the canonical prequel era Fett really at all. I think it's sort of missing on both counts for me, but I don't really mind. I think on paper it makes sense because we're meant to believe that he's really grown as a person because he spent 5 years with these Tusken Raiders, which I don't know how they're going to sort of deal with that time jump because it feels like where the flashbacks are now, we're like month 2 or month 1 or 2 with them because he's still wearing he just got out of his jumpsuit from the Sarlacc pit at the end of this episode. So it's just like, at what point are we going to skip ahead 4 years or something? But right now, and when he picks up in Mandalorian 5 years later from these flashbacks, I mean, it's even worse than that. It's in the same show, scene to scene. We have this gap, and he just seems like the same person to me. So I don't see how we're supposed to have this massive character. Like, the idea is that he is original trilogy Boba Fett in these flashback scenes because he's growing as a side effect of dealing with these Tusken Raiders. But that type of range either is not, it's not on the page, it's not being directed, or we've decided we're not doing that. He's just the same guy the whole time, pretty much. I mean, so I think the idea is that he changed because of that experience, and they're sort of showing him like learn how to fight and stuff. But
this is the weird thing though, is that like again, I respect everything they're doing. I don't even disagree with it, like the way like I was with Mandalorian season 1. It's just that like, okay, when it comes to Star Wars fans and Boba Fett's position in Star Wars lore, he is the greatest bounty hunter of all time. He's the guy who captured Han Solo. And that, and we talked about that how many months ago? Like, that's the reason why like a lot of Star Wars fans have always held him in high regard without him really doing anything. Is that like, oh, he captured the slickest man in the galaxy. And he did it kind of like single-handedly. Even like, think about the entire Empire. Vader's looking for Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon, and yet Boba Fett was outthinking Han Solo. And then like you look in this, it's just that like, again, not that they're regressing the character, because yes, this is the same guy who gets like bumped in the back and like he literally flies into the side of the sail barge. So like, no, is he infallible? No, but I think, as we all know, Lucas's decision in Jedi was because it was one of the earliest signs of Lucas's contempt for the fan base, is that like, I don't understand why this thing is popular. I have control over it. I'm going to show them who's boss. And that's why he gets sidelined. or taken out like in kind of the worst way possible. So no, like I said, like clearly they're working with what they were given, and I don't disagree with any choice they've made. I just like, again, it feels once again like it's that Mandalorian thing of like, oh, it's not Boba Fett. It's like this would have been like a more interesting, like a character that was just kind of like kidnapped, like a la Shmi Skywalker, and like had to use their wits and resources, and you tell a new story. Like I think I would have found, like, again, like obviously Boba Fett's here because he's one of the most recognizable aspects of Star Wars, but it just, again, it doesn't feel like the character that we're led to believe is almost like the greatest of the great bounty hunters. And there's also dumb things too, is that like clearly at this point in the storyline, the Tusken Raiders allow him to kind of like leave or come and go as he pleases for the most part. And it's like, if he's going to be gone for 5 years, like what happened to Slave One? Like clearly, like I would imagine like whatever spaceport he parked it at, the Jawas would have gotten to it, considering that we know like what happened to the Razor Crest. Something sits there for more than like 60 minutes. They get their fingers into it.
It's in Jabba's palace. They've showed it. I believe it's been parked there the whole time personally, and it was Bib was just keeping it locked up.
Really? You think it was behind like in a parking lot somewhere?
Well, one of the trailers for the show shows it in Jabba's palace for sure.
That's where he had it parked now that he's like the crime lord of Tatooine.
But that's where he was last. So why wouldn't it be parked there?
Is there any previous canon thing of where you park like your vehicles when you visit Jabba?
Yeah, he probably took a desert train there. Come on, those things are going everywhere.
But that's the thing, though, because like I have that very, very specific memory from the 2008 movie where like when Obi-Wan like basically parks outside like in like the quasi parking lot to like negotiate like for like Rhoda's like return.
Jabba clearly has a sweet underground parking garage because he had so many buddies over, and there's not a single vehicle parked outside.
That's true.
I don't know.
Space Train. Those guys all took the bus or the train there.
Oh, Russ, not Space Train, Space Shuttle. There's a little shuttle. Like it's like, imagine it's Disney World and you're on the little carts. Like the parking lot is like how many like miles away, and there's a little tram that sits there, just like goes like half the speed of smell. It just brings them there.
The regional term is long speeder.
So yeah, what did you guys think of all of that? I mean, it is following those tropes of older films, of course. But did you like seeing the Tuskens just out there, kind of having to take their pot shots and having a mission? And I think of all that, I mean, the fun of it all, like when he brought those speeders back, and they have to do all that. And I kind of want to get into a little bit of that when you talked about him wandering off. That's probably my favorite part of it, when he does wander off. And did you notice who the female in the bar was?
At the time of watching it, no, but I did watch one of those like Easter egg YouTube videos.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it when they actually like brought that to my attention, like 2 and 2 clicked. I was like, oh God, that's like,
so yeah,
I
want to say
reference. That is the deepest of deep cuts.
I caught it because they had the subtitles on, and when she says something, she only says a couple things, but it said Cammy. And immediately, Cammy, of course, I know from the deleted scenes of A New Hope. I think she does the chick Luke like. She called him Wormy. And, of course, famous deleted scene of A New Hope. But Cammy's still kicking around on Tatooine, hanging out in bars, getting harassed by these guys.
Well, Russ, do you know where it is? Where that was?
Was that Anchorhead?
It's Tosche Station.
Oh, that's Tosche Station. Oh, okay. So she made it.
The set
there.
is the same. The set is the same. Like physically, like a lot, like in these videos, people are doing like side by side comparisons, and it's the same like set, so to speak.
Oh, that's sad. Cammy never got out of Tosche Station.
It's
Luke would have known.
Well,
okay. Oh, that is Fixer with her as well.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow. And Luke could have visited. Maybe he did visit them. He knew they were there. Huh.
I think there's like maybe one canon story where he has a brief interaction with them, because that's something we dig up nowadays. But whereas before they just were basically canon because of the deleted scene.
Isn't in the Last Jedi novelization like he has like a hallucination or something that he's married to her? Like an alternate life.
Yes,
everything went
I
according to
remember this.
plan.
I remember this discussion where we did talk about a brief scene of him reflecting on what his life would have been if he didn't leave Tatooine, and that he thought he would have made it with Cammy and got to run Tashi Station.
I'll take your word for it.
Oh, it's so exciting. With Fixer.
Star Wars in 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? It's like, who is that? Like I guess like any sort of little outpost would have served the purpose. So it's not like they're bending over backwards to include this stuff, because at the end of the day there was like Jabba goons in there that just got thrashed, and that was the whole. It could have been anywhere, but so it's just window dressing. It's cool that they're there. I think they did a pretty good casting match. Like she looked right. I guess they're supposed to be like 9 years older than that deleted scene, so like it kind of works. That it's not.
Wait, whoa, because is it not just 9 years?
It's probably about 9 years, because we're talking the beginning of A New Hope.
Yeah, you're right. So like about.
Oh yeah, you're right. And this is about Jedi time, right? Because this was a flashback. Oh, okay.
Because what
they were actually, you're right. No,
yeah, you're right. It'd be less. It'd be like 5 years or 4, because this is post Jedi. Like he's still wearing his he still has his flight suit on, as we've discussed.
Yeah, so you're right. It's under 5. So that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. She's not 40. It's not 40 years later, and she's still at Tashi Station. All right.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like what? Because she's like Luke's what 19 in New Hope.
Yeah. So
she's probably about 24, like maybe 23, 25, and she looks like she's in her mid to late 40s. So it's perfect for Tatooine aging. So we gotta give credit where credit is due.
That Luke comes back, they're like, "Wow, Wormy, you're still a kid. What are you?" They're like, "Guys, we're the same age. You guys look terrible."
Luke Skywalker comes back. It's like, Luke, you got all this like CGI Vaseline on your face. What happened?
He's like, "Look, I got in a car wreck and I look better than you guys, okay? And a Wampa."
Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing that recreated set. I mean, it's really just like a very square room with a pane of glass, but you can definitely tell they matched up this sort of the doorway and the control panels and all that.
They have a video game in there too. That was cool.
I didn't notice that.
They have to have an arcade game, Russ. Come on.
Go waste time with your friends later. That's what they're doing. They're playing that whatever the video game they had in there. That was there, right? That wasn't the club. They had the video game was at Tashi Station.
Yeah, the video game was at Tashi Station. They were playing like the intergalactic version of Battleship, Star Destroyer. They're playing Star Destroyer,
and it's not in atmosphere, so we can talk about it. It's fine.
Yeah. So they did have Star in there. They were playing the game, Star Destroyer. So there, it does have that Star Wars feel to it.
Well, this is the question I have about like different forms of like deep cut Star Wars nostalgia in these like contemporary like Disney Plus shows. Like the Tashi Station, Cammy, Fixer, that is like you have to really know what it is you're looking at. Like I remember back like in like, oh God, like our Rogue One, like this was like after Rogue One came out. Like I had a prediction being like, I wouldn't be surprised if they had like a different version of the movie where like it ends with like Luke Skywalker looking up at the sky and he sees the battle happening, and that's like the final ending of Rogue One. And they obviously decided to go more the Princess Leia route of all this, but clearly like the deleted scenes are part of the Star Wars zeitgeist. So like you have that level of like a deep cut reference, like you have to know what it is that you're looking at. Like you can't just it's a very subtle like nostalgia or member berry. And then you have like the Mandalorian season 1 with the little like blue alien guy that's like the bounty on the snow planet. He's like, well, I was hoping to get back to like my planet before Life Day. He looks directly into the camera and winks. Like, and that's the thing where I think is so fascinating. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that's I find so interesting about like where we're going is like Star Wars media, and that like we're still doing the member berries, but are they doing it because they're running out of member berries, or are they doing it because they're actually starting to like refine it and making it more clever and earned?
They're reaching for those member berries because last episode, the book I couldn't remember where we were talking about this hilarious painting of a female Gamorrean with her child was the Illustrated Star Wars Universe, which is which is a 1996 book where Macquarie did a whole bunch of new paintings, and they pulled from that book again in this episode actually, which just for a like a background sort of framing piece, like when Fett's carving his gaffy stick, there's this weird sort of like curved piece of a giant engine or something, and there's a painting in that book of a Tusken Raider in front of just the identical piece of wreckage like hanging out there. So they pulled from a 90s nostalgia, and I mean I like, this is a book I had like when it came out, and like I recognized that piece of spaceship hull instantly. I don't know what that does. Like, what kind of a memorabilia is that? This is from a 1996 book. I don't like, it doesn't connect with any idea or story beat, right? It's like purely iconography.
Well,
I think it's pure Macquarie. They always want anything they can mine of Macquarie. We will see everything Macquarie has ever drawn Star Wars related on a Disney screen at some point.
Well, I don't know how much of that is like Cowboy Hat Man, because if you go back to even Rebels, like everything from Rebels was like discarded Macquarie like concept art. And that's the thing that like I obviously it's cheaper because they can just go back to it, they own it, so you can save on like concept artists like having to design things. But it's like I still find it so baffling that like what these are ideas that Lucas discarded in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and somehow like what 40 years later they're it's like, yeah, this is good. Like there's just something so weird about this. And like Chris was saying, this piece of concept art with the Tusken Raider and the bent piece of metal, like I literally have seen this on like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram like dozens of times, and the fan base is weirdly getting off to this. And I'm just like I get it, like it was a picture in the book from like how many years ago. But like they do this so often, like you guys were saying, I don't know why we're getting excited about it.
Because that's my Star Wars. That's my Star Wars they're putting on the film right there. That's my Star Wars we're seeing right there.
But this is like
that's what
Chris,
it is.
Well, no, you're right. But like Chris,
that's
like,
my Star Wars, Zach.
But Chris, okay, Chris, how old is this book like that you like referenced? Like when was this published?
96.
Okay, and how many like things of this they think they printed? Like what? Maybe 5,000-10,000. This wasn't exactly like a Art of the Force Awakens that everybody bought like in December 2015.
I don't know. I think this book was a big deal just because you have, like, let me paint a picture for you, pun intended. This book is written like in universe as a, before travel blogs existed. It's a in-universe travel blog of like 6 or 7 planets, including Coruscant, before even the special edition came out. So you have like 10-15 pages in here of Macquarie paintings of Coruscant when you didn't really know what that was, and it was mind-blowing. So like I thought this book was a big deal. You're literally getting a look at Coruscant from episode 1 until Rebels, basically, because of how much this stuff was mined. Like a couple of them are from, and this is 96, right? So a couple of them are from unused paintings from Return of the Jedi, but most of it was new stuff, and most of it did end up being used as reference material. So I thought this book was a big deal, but I really couldn't tell you how it was received at the time.
That's the thing. It's like one of those things where they just kind of clearly somebody in the production holds this book in, again, probably Cowboy Hat Man. Somebody in his orbit if it's not just him, his orbit holds it in very high regard, and they're treating this almost like a Bible.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. That would seem like his timing too. And I would say, I mean, I was a huge Star Wars fan. I had kind of, slacked off a bit at that time. I'm not super aware of this book either. So I think it is a Cowboy Hat Man obsession that this is something he's held on to. This is his Star Wars, as Joe would say.
Well, it might be, because another thing that's from this 1996, The Illustrated Star Wars Universe is the title of the book, is those Dagobah spiders that they keep reusing. Now there was a really basic sketch of that spider for Empire Strikes Back, but the like fully rendered painting where it has that pasty white texture to it, that's from this 1996 book, and that was in Rebels and Mandalorian.
See, you're connecting it all. What do those all have in common? It's Cowboy Hat Man, guys.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Like no, like you look like this book. I'm looking it up right now, and like it goes for anywhere from $10 to like $25 used. So like it's
There's a hardcover one, but yeah, but like I said, like it's beautiful Macquarie paintings, but like I was trying to say earlier, like there's not much like Cammy and Fixer, like I've seen all of those deleted scenes. Some of the deleted scenes have sort of a lot more narrative relevance than Cammy and Fixer. I couldn't tell you a thing they said in that scene. I've seen it. I know the names of the characters.
well, that's the weird thing about like again, this goes back into like which I am so surprised, and not to bring this more into like just like overall Star Wars stuff. But like, oh god, it was during the summer. It was what? Oh, I'm gonna butcher his name. I have the book. I'm gonna sit there physically look at the book as I can butcher this gentleman's name. Howard Kazanjian. Did I say it right?
Kazanjian.
Kazanjian. Jeez. I'll get it right one day. But no, like there was what the quote in the book from like Marshall Lucas where it was like, oh, like oh god, like the mess that like J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy have like done to my Star Wars. And it's weird that like the reason why you don't have like, oh god, forget about Cammy and Fixer, you don't get Biggs Darklighter for the most part, is because Marshall Lucas is like, no, this is superfluous. Like trim it, condense it. Like maybe the OG JJ like editing person in that sense, like streamline it, but like in the most effective way possible. Again, it's like a weird like reflection of the using discarded Ralph McQuarrie artwork. Is like these were ideas that were discarded. These were characters that were discarded, and for some reason we're just bringing them back because we like very niche nostalgia.
Well, I mean, in the case of that book, it's not so much discarded as it was commissioned specifically for that book. So it's even weirder because it's like it's not even a relic of the original trilogy. It's like a direct reference to a book that was not even a movie tie-in at the time, per se.
So is this like a weird version of like having a Star Wars t-shirt like that nobody else has and like wearing it all the time? Like is that what this is?
It'd be like a t-shirt that is like iconography from like the New Jedi Order novels or something. It's without a title, without any text on there. Like it's so, but like you know what I mean though. Like I saw it, I appreciated it. I knew what they were referencing right away in the case of the like weird hollowed out starship and that the Tusken Raiders were hanging out in. It's just it would be better if they found ways to like reference. Like I don't know what a good example would be, honestly, because I honestly couldn't tell you the context of the Cammy and Fixer conversation in the deleted scene.
It's just a bunch of teenagers.
They just call Luke just runs in. He's like, hey, there's a battle going on, guys. They're like, oh, wormy. You're all getting excited. And he's like, no, look. And then they're like, I don't know. And that's kind of it. And they're like, and then Cammy's, I think her line is, oh, Biggs. Oh, you're so hot with your cape. And that's all I remember.
You know what I mean, though? Like I like that stuff, but I want it to be sort of synergistic, if I may say such a ridiculous thing, with the direction that part of the story is already going in. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a convenient backdrop in most of these cases where they're using it. It's not a second layer supporting the narrative.
Well, I think well that also explains why we spent so much time on Tatooine the last couple of years. It's like it's like you said, Chris, it's becoming convenient for synergistic reasons. Like there's a reason why we spent so much time there in The Mandalorian. There's a reason why we're spending so much time there now. Like it's kind of a miracle we got Jakku and Pisana in the sequel trilogy now that we think about it.
That's true. And yeah, because that is, and it also brings back that thing, like, why didn't they just make Galaxy's Edge Tatooine? They obviously want to tell us that Tatooine equals Star Wars home base, and it kind of always has. And
give it, Russ, give it time. Like I 100%, I would be shocked. Like, and like one of those things we definitely have to kind of touch upon is like all the stuff that's happening with the Galactic Star Cruiser and how apparently that's starting to like hemorrhage like reservations, because like I get emails all the time now from Disney being like, hey, like, are you interested? Like it's not as full as you think it is. And it's like, that's like Disney, God, like yes, Disney hawks its wares, but usually it's nothing like that's that exclusive. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like I really think like, and again, and everybody who with half a brain in their head knew that Galaxies or Star Wars land should have been Tatooine. Especially you're in Florida. You can always just ignore the rain. Just build a canopy. It's just a big canopy.
All they had to do is buy a second son. It's not that hard, guys.
The interesting thing is, like, I forget the name of the show, but there is a show on Disney Plus that has a episode about Galaxy's Edge, like, in the making of it, and like in that it's explicitly stated we were literally gonna make it Tatooine, but Bob Iger said no. Like, that's just it's in a Disney produced documentary series about the land.
I think there is a Galen Erso, though, that is a part of that team that it made it enough to where he's like, all you need is a small modification. It can easily become Tatooine. I made this to look like Fixa's Tashi Station, but it's not. It's something else, but it can be changed. And there is going to be some kind of Rogue One team that's going to go in and solve it.
Well, but the interesting thing about that, though, is nondescript Tatooine, or let's go even crazier, is Mos Espa as iconic as Mos Eisley. I don't know. Like, is it?
No.
Like, does it alleviate your annoyance with Batu, Zach, if it is suddenly a fringe corner of Mos Espa? Like, I'm not sure that's much better, is it?
I don't know. I think the jury is still out on Galaxy's Edge. Because I think when it comes to Tatooine, there's like a giant 800-pound gorilla in the room, and it's called Kenobi, which is going to be more or less exclusively on Tatooine. I don't think any of this is an accident or by chance. And like I said, we've mentioned this a couple of times, just like the fact that like Bob Iger for the most part is gone now. Bob Chapek is very, very stingy, especially when it comes to the theme parks. The theme parks are there to make money. They're not there to cost money. So no, I don't think the Galaxy's Edge revamp is coming anytime soon. But I do think that it's something that, like, if Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, Lord knows where Mandalorian season 3 takes us, if any of this like trends in that direction, like, there's also, again, not to get too far into theme park nonsense, there's Star Tours that's weirdly like adjacent to Galaxy's Edge, yet is removed from Galaxy's Edge, like as in like a narrative level. And anybody who knows their theme park like history, whether it be like Universal Studios, like with Harry Potter, Diagon Alley, and Hogsmeade, think about it. Do we know where Batu is relative to like Tatooine? Like, they're both in the Outer Rim, right?
You're getting too meta for me. Like, you still shouldn't be able to walk there between them.
No, but you could okay, but like, okay, Chris hasn't watched. Russ, did you watch? Because Chris is deliberately staying like spoiler free when it comes to like.
I've watched the ride. I've watched the ride at with you talking about Rise of Resistance ride. I have watched the ride through. Yes.
Okay, so look at it this way. So Russ is gonna know what I'm saying. Like, in that ride, part of the queue is like you're on Batu. The Resistance is like, oh, like, we're gonna help you. Like, we need to sit there, do this thing, so like you can help the Resistance. And then like you get brought aboard a Star Destroyer, and it's very clever. Like, it's cleverly done. I could see Star Tours being like a version of like, okay, like because eventually they're going to demolish the Muppet ride. The Muppet ride's been around for like 30 years. Like the Muppet, like the Disney for how many years now still doesn't know what to do with the Muppets. Like, every show bombs out of the gate. I could see them like demolishing the Muppet thing, completely redoing.
There'd be so many poor sad people watching them just knock Kermit and Fozzie and all of them.
I would feel bad. Like I said, it's somebody who I remember going on that ride. Like, when I was a kid, like I cried when that little blue thing like flies around the auditorium. But like, no, like R.I.P. Muppet Vision.
The current Muppets are a Shakespearean tragedy, man. Like, Frank Oz has given a recent interview saying, I'd love to do it again. They don't want me back.
They don't.
And it's just like, because he's not a yes man, you know. He's gonna do Muppets how he wants to. He's 80 years old, so then he doesn't play. But do you really think they're gonna make that much real estate of the park like Star Wars Land though?
It depends. Like, and this goes back into theme park history, because like the only reason why you got Star Wars Land and even like Avatar and Animal Kingdom is because like Harry Potter scared the ever living daylights out of Disney with what happened at Universal. Like, I remember when that happened, like Universal's like, oh God, return on investment for that was like 2 to 3 years. And they literally made back their investment like in 3 months. Like, it was unheard of. Like, it basically scared Disney in a way that Disney had never been. Again, it was the first time Disney was authentically challenged in the theme park world. And they did Avatar. Like that was a very like oh god, it was I think it was like a year after Hogsmeade opened that they signed that deal with Jimmy C. It took like the better part of a decade to get that thing open, but like that was the plan. Like what's the next closest thing to Harry Potter? The highest grossing film of all time, Avatar. And this is before like 20th Century Fox. And then like it was Star Wars. Was like what 5 years after they closed that deal, like they finally announced Galaxy's Edge was coming. I could see them doing that. It depends on how much money Galaxy's Edge is bringing in. Like if they're looking at it, because I was gonna save this for the end of the recording though, but spoiler alert, I think I told Chris this. Like I'm like 2 weeks from now, I won't be around to do the recording because I'm going to Florida. And I am going to Galaxy's Edge.
Whoa. You got to record some there, man, as you walk around.
I will. Oh, trust me, I will. And what's happening is that like you can't do like I booked this like a month in advance and you literally can't do anything. Like everything is full, like the droid depot, the lightsaber building experience, Ooga Booga's cantina. Everything is booked. And like it shouldn't be a problem to get on Smuggler's Run. Rise of the Resistance should be easy as long as you do it first thing in the morning. But it's the idea that like I think especially like in a post-COVID world, the capacity is too like narrow. So like how else do you increase like profits in that area? It's like, well, I think about you're not making any money off Muppet Vision. Star Tours isn't making any money. So what do? Like you think about that. Like once again with Book of Boba Fett, we go with, I don't know the name of the casino he walks into with DJ with what Captain Rex being like the card counting or the card dealing droid. That could very easily be a thing. It's one of those things where like I think Kenobi's gonna have its own version of the Tatooine bar that we've seen numerous times now.
That venue is far too exciting to exist in an actual theme park. It's not, there's a lot going on there that is not.
Yeah, they're gonna have male and female Twi'leks walking up to you like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
No,
yeah.
but I think the idea is that like clearly people want in. But they, again, all of Galaxy's Edge was designed years before the current state of the world. And I think they're going to sit there and look at that. Do we know the name of the casino in Book of Boba Fett? Do we have a name for that yet?
I'll try and find it while you continue.
They do have a name. They do call it something specific in it.
Okay, Chris is going to sit there fact check me in real time. So like look at that place or that set relative to like any of the cantinas we've seen in Star Wars. Like, oh God, Wur's Cantina is so small and dingy. It's clearly meant to be a dive bar. And then you have this casino that's like, oh, it's open. It's well lit. Like it has all this like room in it. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like anybody who knows their Disney theme park stuff, like anytime a new like movie, TV show goes into production, there is like a small team of like theme park people whose job it is to like look into the production and see that if this thing blows up, what elements can we pull from for a potential theme park thing? Like my favorite one was for the Johnny Depp Armie Hammer Lone Ranger movie. Like apparently like Disney had the like if that film took off like Pirates of the Caribbean level, they were going to completely redo Big Thunder Mountain like at Disney World at Disneyland and do it like to the Lone Ranger with like oh god who's the bad guy in that? Oh god I forget.
Lone Ranger.
Well, no, it's even like he was even in the serial from like what the 50s. They were gonna sit there do all that, like they were gonna like redo the train to be like that train from the last like the third act like climax. Disney always does this. John Carter, they always have theme park stuff in mind when they're sitting there doing this because they want to extrapolate it. And I could see that being the potential way here. Like again, Star Tours is weirdly kind of outside of Galaxy's Edge, both literally and narratively. And you have Muppet Vision that nobody cares about outside of like a niche of a group of fans. And every time I say this, like Russ just starts laughing every time I say Muppet Vision.
I'm picturing the poor Muppet people. And don't get me wrong, I love the Muppets. My favorite Christmas album is John Denver and the Muppets, still to this day. But the current state of the Muppets, it is like you want to pull the plug on them, and like just they kind of do need to. Maybe they do need to pull the plug.
That's the thing. It's like it's not again, and that's the thing about like Disney now. Is that like it's not about like rides anymore. It's about the experiences. There's a reason why like the waits to meet like actors in costume are 5 to 6 hours, and the waits for like the rides are like 2-3. It's because people want to be able to take a picture and put it on Instagram. You really can't take a good like Instagram selfie. Is like the thing is like twirling you around. Again, it goes back to like Chris's thesis was a couple weeks ago. The thing of like why I like find Smuggler's Run so boring is that like the main draw of that ride isn't flying the Millennium Falcon. It's sitting in front of the chessboard. And I'm like, no, like that's not what I want. Like I want to be able to fly the Falcon. Like I want a cool ride. And it's like, no, people want to sit there, have that selfie social media experience. And I think that's what Galaxy's Edge is catering towards. But the problem is that it's just so small that it's not able, they're not maximizing their profits off of it. But I could be wrong. I look forward to like Chris said, I look forward to walking into Galaxy's Edge and guffawing at the Millennium Falcon.
I wonder, do we know for a fact that the like the lightsaber forge experience, is that like literally one room, or do they have like 2 or 3 of them that go simultaneously? Like that's where you see this sort of bottleneck thing, right? Like you'd think they would have just built that in a way that they would have a bunch of rooms, but maybe they did.
I know it's like, because like I found the thing on the Disney Experience app, like it's only 20 minutes. So like supposedly they can get like 2 or 3 shows, quote unquote, in an hour. And that's the thing, like I can't even, I think about that. So that's what the park's open from 9 to 9. So 12 times 2, 3. So that's 24 to 36 shows potentially during a day. And that's not a lot. And I think you can I haven't watched a lot of those videos carefully, but there's maybe a dozen people per show. So like it's not a huge like people eater. And considering that like there's people lining up to basically drop like minimum $200 for their own custom lightsaber.
The really beautiful way Smuggler's Run is designed, where like there's a carousel of Falcon cockpits that rotate to the door that leads up to the cockpit in the queue. Like that's awesome. You'd think, considering people are paying $250 per lightsaber, they would have had like 3 of those rooms hooked up, like all like in a circle at least.
But look at it this way though, like the reason why that lightsaber experience exists is because of Harry Potter and the Ollivanders experience. Like that's Disney. And again, it was one of the very few times that like Disney was not the trailblazer. They were emulating somebody else. Again, everybody thinks that like, oh, Disney bought Star Wars because like, oh, it was such a profitable IP. And it's like, no, like they didn't have anything like that in their current stable. So what's the next closest thing? Like that's the thing. Like Bob Iger didn't sit there care about these movies. He looked at this as in like, okay, this is how we're going to be able to how we're going to beat the opposing team.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're right. Harry Potter was so huge, and I know I've actually been to the Harry Potter thing, and I've seen the things of Galaxy's Edge. It does seem that they put way more into, but like I said, I haven't seen Galaxy's Edge yet up close.
But I think also the thing is that like when you go to Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley, like Ollivanders is a very specific thing that happens to Harry Potter in that first book / movie. There's none of like Savi's lightsaber depot or whatever it's called. That doesn't happen in any of the movies. Like the idea of making a lightsaber is something that's not really touched upon in any of the movies specifically, outside of maybe, oh god, I can't even think of one like where like building a lightsaber is a focal point of a plot.
I mean, it's a pretty big deal in the Knights of the Old Republic game, which you've never played.
Oh, okay, Grandpa.
Yeah,
reference your 18-year-old, you're not 18 going on 19-year-old game.
Yeah, it's a pretty good.
No, but
it's a good moment.
But the point being is that like think about it, the most like we've ever seen the craft of a lightsaber be a plot point was in that one Clone Wars episode with David Tennant is like the like millennia like aged robot. And I think that's the weird thing about, again, it goes back to like the weird disconnect about how they don't understand Star Wars. It's like, if you want to do that, like do Ilum like that. Like, again, like if you want to do like, which you can't do, I get it. It's for many reasons, but it's like, but like Russ and I already talked about, like, it's the idea that they do a pretty nice transition of like getting you from Bot 2 onto the First Order Star Destroyer. It's a pretty seamless transition. They can kind of do anything. And that's where I think it depends on where the future of Star Wars is for the next like 2 to 3 years. I think if anything like blows up as big as like The Mandalorian did, And even that, the fact that you still don't have a Din Djarin character walking around any of the theme parks outside of like maybe a parade or two, I still think is shocking. Which I think think like, okay, oh God, I'm going down like a deep rabbit hole. Like years ago, they had like an autonomous Wally animatronic that would like walk around and sit there like go Wally at you, and like people lost their minds.
Oh, so you're thinking Big Whiskey should be crawling around?
There should be a Big Whiskey in his pram, like walking around with like
floating around, messing with people.
It wouldn't be hard to do that. Like with today's technology, like Chris has said, like is this stuff that like apparently for like the Galaxy's Edge Star Cruise, I'm sorry, the Galactic Star Cruiser, where it's like, oh, they're apparently having like a nightmare trying to do like that lightsaber they had the Rey like actress do. And like apparently like they've tried doing this at like the dinner shows, and the thing just like collapses the moment you slightly move it, because it's essentially a digital measuring tape.
Yeah, have you ever tried to swing around a measuring tape? It doesn't work out. It's not good. Even if you had two together for extra support, it's probably not super sturdy. Yeah.
But that's the thing though. Like this is the same company that literally made like a 1-to-1 replica of Wally and had it like walking around the parks. And like they were able to do that like, oh God, like 10 plus years ago. And now like these sort of ideas that like don't seem that far-fetched, that somebody, I'm pretty sure, like with given like a $3,000 budget could figure it out. And they're just like, they're just like, And that's where I think they're waiting for that next big thing to blow up. Like blow up in a good way. I mean, like really become like, again, like a Force Awakens level, like tour de force, where they're like, okay, we're going to scrap Tatooine. We're doing sequel trilogy. It needs to be that seismic of like a thing for them.
I don't think our classic Mos Eisley type Tatooine is a brilliant theme park environment. Personally, like you never saw much happening there. Mos Espa clearly has a lot more going on. You got little hot dog stands for Jar Jar to rob. You got all kinds of like brothels and like weird better aliens. And
we get old ladies telling us the storm's coming too.
Yeah. Oh my God. Clearly, Mos Espa.
Sale's coming, Annie. Get to the gift shop and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like Watto's, like literally the only thing Mos Eisley has going for it is the cantina. So like that, and I mean that's pretty good, but that's the only thing that there is in the whole town. So
exactly. So I think that's why we're weirdly, building up Mos Espa.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it is that like it depends. Like if this resonates, which I don't think it is, because like it's not like becoming this like thing that everybody's talking about. Like clearly it's appeasing Star Wars fans for the most part, outside of the ones that are mad that there's no Reek in the first episode.
Yeah, because Mos Espa also has pod racing, which is like that's
still a dirty word in the fandom though.
I've seen pod racing on Malastars. It's very fast, very dangerous.
Yeah, I've seen it there too in 64-bit graphics. But on the subject of Mos Espa, I do have to print yet another retraction alongside my underground Black Pumpkin retraction. There are, which I posted in the Knights of Vader Facebook group, there are some 1995 Doug Chiang concept drawings of Mos Espa that look very much like how we see it in the Book of Boba Fett, where it's sort of dug into the ground and like sort of built inside this canyon.
It's Doug Chiang into the ground. Yes.
There you go. He's here all week, everyone.
I'm sorry.
No, but
this kid's late now.
Yeah, you can't. I wouldn't have been able to resist that either. But the interesting thing for me would be to like maybe we need to tweet Rob Coleman or something and be like, when you guys were doing those wide shots in episode 1, like, tell me there's like a big groove in the middle of that city that we just can't see, but you guys worked on it a little bit. Like, I want to know that now. but yeah, so like I was being an episode 1 pleb and I didn't know about those concept drawings, so I'm kind of ashamed.
So what else?
Maybe it's a different Mos Espa. Maybe like how there's different Springfields all throughout like the US. Maybe there's multiple Mos Espas on Tatooine.
It was I mean, they're talking about Jabba hanging out there. Like, I'm pretty sure it's the same.
All right. I would imagine it's like imagine saying like you only been to one Springfield. Like I imagine at some point in anybody's life, they've been to 2 different Springfield towns. Chris, I'm trying to give you the mental gymnastics to explain this.
No, I'm fine with accepting my defeat, but because the concept art clarifies that it is the same Mos Espa because it's Phantom Menace concept art for Mos Espa. But it'd just be cool if there was like previs for like a different establishing shot of the city that was far more descriptive than what we got in episode 1. Like that'd be cool if it actually like if they were actually headed in that direction and we're seeing it now. That's fun. One other thing I wanted to throw out there before we moved on from this episode, I was surprised to see an attempt at live action Hutts. They didn't look bad to the point where they distracted me, but am I crazy? I think episode 1 Jabba looked better than these guys, and that's 22 years ago. They definitely look better than A New Hope, Disney Plus Jabba. Like that's still, even the redone version of that is an abomination. They weren't distractingly bad.
Very Clone Warsy, where they got those little tattoos on their little gullets or whatever, and the bright colors and stuff. Very, very cowboy hat job of Hutts.
I'm just curious, like, what they actually had on set, because sometimes you get to look at these behind the scenes and they have, like, a rudimentary version of the real thing just in place for, like, lighting reference and for the actors. Like, I wonder if they had, like, a static prop that was, like, kind of good, but, like, it would have to be super light, I guess, because you have this weird phenomenon of, like, 10 guys carrying them out on little poles. But I just, it's just weird to me that it's like I know a lot of people, they sort of romanticize the original Jabba, like, but I'll be the first to admit, like, some parts of him look weird, like his tail, his arms look a little rubbery, but like the face is awesome, and there's something you can tell that's just like, it's something about Return of the Jedi Jabba, like they haven't, like it's up right up there with the Alien Queen in terms of the most complex animatronic / puppet creatures that have ever existed, because the art died off not long after that. And I don't, like, you'd think they would have taken a crack at something practical, or at least like half and half, like Grogu or something, because I mean, if you're not seeing it now, you're probably not ever going to.
I think that goes.
Yeah, it was definitely a shot. No, it's definitely a shot they took with it. I was surprised. I did like the build up, because I did have one of those moments being so sucked in where I was like, oh, they're too busy, with their debauchery on Hutta. And I was like, when they said the twins, and it's like, as a fan, you kind of put it all together in your head, like, okay, Hutta, I know Hutts. Okay, who are the twins? I'm sitting there going, wait, who are the twins? I don't think I've ever heard of anything of the twins. And then when you actually see them, it was a good reveal. And yeah, didn't look the best, but it also didn't look the worst.
I thought it looked fine. Like I was like, I bought into it. Like I said, like that was my favorite sequence so far. Yeah, I had no problem with it. I considering this is a Robert Rodriguez production, and he is known for like doing things with like a shoestring budget. I would imagine no way he would sit there and do that, because that's like not on brand for him. But I thought it was convincing. Like at no point, like, did I look at this and go like, oh, I can see the seam showing. Like there was no part of that. Like I think the only part in this episode where the seam started to show was like the little like getting back to the plot of this episode, like the little train robot, and he's just like he looks like, oh god, who's that character in the the Bryan Cranston Power Rangers movie who has like the dish head? Like he has like the flat head. He looked like, for some reason, like it made me very reminiscent of that character. I know I'm making a very odd reference here.
I've actually seen this movie too, but I don't remember. Yes, I've seen Bryan Cranston.
I've seen his toy a lot at Big Lots over the years. It's the same like one thing on the shelf for like 5 years straight. But like I said, no, that was really the only sequence, was that little train robot guy that, and then like he like jumps out the window and like scurries away as like an insect. Other than that, like that was the only moment I thought looked a little like hokey.
Well, one thing that as a Clone Wars aficionado, one thing I thought was a little jarring was like the pikes were like, when you're, especially during the train fight, like I feel like they could have tried a little harder, or just used a different species to make them look like straight up a bit less like dudes with helmets on, because like they have a very non-human like body form like in the Clone Wars, and like you don't get a great, the one in Solo is like wearing a lot of stuff, so you don't get a great look at it, but they did just seem sort of like dudes with like rubber masks on. Like the faces were great at the end after they captured the train, but like during the action scenes they really just seemed like regular guys, which like they just look they're like an atypical form in their previous incarnation. So it was just a little weird seeing it like that.
You're right. They did look almost like they were just like a long snake standing up, almost like we didn't quite know what their body was. But yeah, they are. But they looked pretty good, and it took me a minute to be like, oh, they're pikes, and they're talking about spice. But that was kind of the one cheesy line from Boba where you saw it coming, where it was like they're like, no spice. He's like, oh, what's that? When they drop the little bucket of spice opens up. And I'm actually watching my family. I think my mother-in-law goes, oh, Dune. Like, I was like, yeah, it's a Dune reference. No, Star Wars.
Well, I mean, I guess it sort of technically is a Dune reference, but I would appreciate that more if she was referencing it without having seen the recent film, because that would be like, that's like what a 70s person reaction was supposed to be when they heard about spice in A New Hope. Yes. Dune, good. but yeah, no, it was it was cool. The pikes, the alien faces on the pikes look good. They just had a very stuntman goonish form during the train battle, and I didn't like how many of them were sort of herded up. I was like, I would just watch that. I know more of these guys were killed than that during this fight. Like, it looks like there's 30 of them captured. I don't know. That seemed strange to me.
Those might have been the guys that got just beat up and lost their weapon, and it just kind of rounded them all up. Yeah. And also, did you notice that Orange Rodian got that only Rodian that exists on Tatooine now since Greedo died? It was again in the casino. I caught him.
I did not notice that, but I'm glad they're getting their mileage out of that one Orange Rodian mask.
That mask, that one Orange Rodian mask is going to be in every episode.
Yeah, but like I was saying before, first 10 minutes crazy. I don't believe the Hutts would have just walked away like that, but I guess our what we're gonna have the joy of experiencing is Black Krrsantian having an awesome assassination attempt on Boba, and then I'm sure we're going to get more hilarious dialogue scenes with the twins. So that excites me. I just hope that the proportion of contemporary story to flashback tips the other direction as we go along in this, because the stakes are just so much higher. And that's the only thing that's holding me back from loving this, is that the first third of it is really life and death, like serious stuff going on, high stakes, important characters. And then we go into something where we sort of know how it ends up playing out for half an hour, and it's a little more predictable. So it's fine. I hope we don't see every minute of these intervening 5 years with the Tuskens, because that's going to use up a lot of screen real estate.
We built a latrine one year, and we're going to get deep into that. That was in that Tamora Morrison interview as well.
Yep, they're going to build wells for water and all kinds of good stuff, and they're going to really improve the quality of life on the Tusken camp.
I opened up a daycare for these little guys.
Yep, he'll be teaching them to read and write next, and they're going to be like, wait, you can live without these masks on just fine in the desert? What have we been doing this whole time?
Who thought, Zach, did you think Boba was going to put a mask on with him?
No. I just find it kind of fascinating that, like, again, this is Boba Fett, always wore his armor. Again, we don't know the like outside of the comics. Like, have they ever explained like when he decided to finally wear the Boba Fett, like, or I guess the Mandalorian armor between the events of the Clone Wars and like I guess the comics of the original trilogy? Have they ever explained, like, you ever had that moment where he decides to like put it on? Like, is it he just finally grew into it?
I don't think so, because when we last see him in Clone Wars episodes that were actually released, he had sort of kit bashed like podge armor, and then there was the unfinished episode where he fought Cowboy Hat Alien.
Yes.
And that guy,
Alien Cowboy Hat.
Yeah, and he had the armor on in that episode, so it would have been in between that time. I don't know if unfinished Clone Wars episodes are canon or not, but some of the stuff from them is finished or directly referenced in season 7. But yeah, I don't think we've seen that, because it would have been like in between Clone Wars episodes.
Yeah, I guess I think it's weird that like this is a guy that like wore the exact same armor for how many years, and then like he makes such a big deal to Din Djarin about it. Yet for how many years he kind of just I know they're gonna explain it, like they're gonna explain it some way, but you would just think that like this would just be a little bit more of a priority for him.
Oh yeah, I mean it's really funny. Like the reason there's a made-up Mandalorian religion of not removing your helmet is because in 6.5 minutes of the original trilogy, Boba Fett never removes his helmet. Yet in this series, he there's literally a shot in the second episode where he feels like it looks like he's annoyed by wearing it when he takes it off. He's like, oh, much better. I hate having to wear a mask when I go to the mall, you know. So like it is funny though, because like they made up a fake religion that's a plot device in the other show because you just never see him not wear his helmet in the original trilogy. But then again though, you know, his dad wasn't so strict about wearing the helmet either.
Yeah, he wore it in front of that whole arena full of bugs. He took it off. So
Have they ever explained how the helmet got like used as like a suicide attack in the Clone Wars and like it somehow got reforged?
Well, this is what I was getting at, where it doesn't like you're saying it connects more with prequel Boba. I'm not sure it does. Daniel Logan's his Twitter's probably on fire right now because we had a recycled still image of his face and a reflection in this episode.
Yep,
So he's
which means they cut him a check. They had to cut him a check.
I did. When I rewatched the first episode, I was watching that scene very closely after we discussed it. I'm going, you're right. They kind of did make it to where you didn't really see him, but no, you straight up see Daniel Logan this episode.
Yeah, yep, they must have just repurposed some footage somehow because it was a reflection. It would have been easier to do than a full on shot.
This is an idea I had during that sequence where we see him on Camino and he sees Slave One fly away. Are we gonna get a moment in this where we see Tamora Morrison talk to like 12-year-old Daniel Logan, like CGI recreated like Daniel Logan? Are we gonna get like the idea of like him coming to terms with like his father's legacy and his role like in the galaxy now? Like, are we gonna
get confusing though for the casual? Are they gonna be like, wait, Boba Fett has a kid? Like, seriously?
I know. That's why I'm hoping for it.
But Zach, I think you're absolutely right because otherwise,
no, we're gonna get a moment where a bug jumps in his nose and Tamora Morrison talks to Tamora Morrison, where he gets this talk to.
That's some bad peyote, man.
I think they're going to lean a lot more heavily on de-aged Tamora Morrison than they are a recreated child Daniel Logan. But I think you're
like that mean guy who's eating his lunch in episode 2.
Yeah, because we already have a de-aged Tamora Morrison in Aquaman, so they got the files handy. They don't even need to recreate that. But I think you're going to get that because otherwise, that especially in the first episode, that shot of Camino is like so superfluous. Like unless you know the movie back and forth, you don't even see the Slave One so far in this show. So like there's no, like, to the casual viewer, that shot of Camino is like the most abstract thing in this show because it's
Who's that kid?
It goes from, and well, it's not, you don't even see the kid in the first time it shows up. It goes from that straight to him holding the helmet in the arena. So it's like, why is that shot of Camino there? It's because they're gonna do something weird where he's gonna have a exchange with his dad before his dad leaves to go do something.
Oh, or wait, are we so like? Is there going to be some like? Will this exchange take place on Camino,
Yes.
or will it be like? Whoa, hold on a second. Let me say the latter point. Will it be Camino or will it be like in that little archway in the Geonosis arena?
I think it's going to be Camino because otherwise we wouldn't be seeing Camino at all.
Unless, remember, Camino is a thing now because of the Bad Batch. Like that's become a very big, like weird, like focal point for Star Wars in like 2021.
Right, but the only thing but like Django and Fett placed there is 20 minutes of Attack of the Clones. Like it's had more screen time since then. I think I'm going to throw it out there. I think it's literally going to be Django is going to be heading off to the Slave One to participate in some specific event of episode 2. Is because he leaves Daniel Logan at daycare during that time, and they're gonna have a little exchange at the door right before Django leaves, because you see him in this one looking at the window as Slave One takes off again. So I think they're gonna have some conversation before Django leaves, and it will be something that takes place in the early part of episode 2, probably.
I'm off to the moons of Bogdan to see a man named Tyrannus. He's going to say that.
He looks directly into the camera after he says it too.
Wink.
Well, the moons of Bogdan are already showed in the Droids cartoon, and that's what they were referencing at the time. But that would have taken place prior to this because he was already hired by Tyrannus. So maybe he's got to go to Coruscant to make an assassination attempt on a certain senator or something, and maybe Daniel Logan thinks thinks it's ignorant that he's risking his life doing that when he already has a fat paycheck from the Kaminoans.
But Dad send the hot chick. He's like, yeah, I am sending the hot chick, but she's sending a bug inside of a robot. I've got it all worked out, son. Just don't worry.
Brilliant. But yeah, you know, I love the ayahuasca trip and all that, and the whatever peyote and going on a vision quest. I love the red eyes in the tree. Is the tree real? I guess we see a little bit of shrubbery around Luke's house and A New Hope. So like there might be a tree out there, one or two dead ones.
That's like the world between worlds though, man. I think that's what that was. That was definitely that's whatever the force is to the Tuscans is whatever's in that little lizard that goes in your brain. There were some great lines. There were like it's some good comedy in this when the thing jumps out of his nose and he said, I actually thought that was part of the dream. And they're like, nope, that's where it goes. Like that was pretty well delivered. I'll give it to Tamura. The whole teaching them to ride speeders and that whole thing and jump from it. There was a lot of fun mixed in with all the weirdness in this.
Yeah, well, it was a good delivery because when he was delivering it, he couldn't see the lizard, and you know you're not going to not notice that something the size of a pencil is in your sinuses. So that's the weird part for me. But so like maybe they could have done a smaller hitchhiker, but that's neither here nor there. It's really a earth lizard called an anole is what it looks exactly like, which are crawling all over the place in Florida, aren't they, Zach? I'm not sure if that's
Oh, they were back in the day. I can't speak nearly 20 years later, but yes, they were everywhere.
Yeah, so you know, it was like the rat. It's a very earthly animal that doesn't cause you hallucinogenic crazy experiences on Earth, but
they tying it back to the theme parks though, because those lizards might be all over the park as far as we know.
You could have people shoving up their nose.
Yes, exactly.
Look, get one experience.
Who wants it? Oh, yeah, they have the lightsaber maker. They're going to have the gaffy stick maker where you got to catch a lizard first.
They're going to catch a lizard and shove it up their nose or some other part of their body. Oh, my God. The Tuscan
Just hope
experience.
it comes out the nose after.
If it comes out another part, they're going to be in trouble. They got to go see a doctor.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Man.
Well, I don't know, Zach. Anything we're forgetting that you wanted to mention here? Like, I think, I'm just excited to see Black Kersanjin take a shot at Boba Fett in a dark alley at night. And
can we call him Black Chekhov? Because he is like the Chekhov's Wookiee of this show, where you're like, oh, he's like the little ninja in The Simpsons, where you're like, come on, you know he's gonna do something cool, and he will.
He looked so threatening.
It's like he gave Boba Fett the people's eyebrow, the Wookiee's eyebrow. I wonder if he's played by Dwayne Johnson. That's Dwayne Johnson's first Star Wars role. He's given the Wookiee's eyebrow. He's like, I'm going to see you. Don't worry. I see you.
Yeah, that's a great standoff. And that's the hook that I was looking for too. Because you kind of forgot about all that once he went into the weird trip. Because it did do almost what would you say that the 2/3 of it was just the flashback to?
Yeah, like time wise, I think it is literally like the back half an hour is the flashback, something like that. It was a pretty long episode. I think it was like 50 minutes.
Yeah, it was almost an hour.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, no, like I said, I really don't know how much more like to really focus on. Like again, like we were saying a couple minutes ago, the watching Boba Fett like mime riding a speeder, watching the Tuscans kind of like make I don't want to say make fools of themselves, but just watch them kind of like the learning curve of like technology. No, that was a lot of fun. It's also fascinating too that like, God, we're getting so much Tuscan Raiders, considering that like, oh God, Chris, you kept mentioning it last week, the idea that we didn't get to see the specific tribe of women and children of Tuscan Raiders, and the fact that like it's weird how like even in Star Wars like terminology they are referred to as sand people, which I would imagine is one of those things like I'm surprised like Lucasfilm hasn't tried to like, oh God, in the Disney Plus edit, it's like, yeah, there's a glitch in the file when they say those words, like the audio just dipped out. We can't explain it. There's an edit to the master print of it.
The indigenous Tatooiners are easily startled, but they'll be back. You know, they are going to have to shift that at some point, but they haven't. I don't know why.
That's the thing. It's interesting that they keep giving the Tuscans so much attention, like considering there is like that's like a weird form of like inviting controversy, which is pretty easy to do nowadays.
I don't think they look at it that way. I think especially ever since they brought in the sign language thing, people are eating it up. Like they got so much kudos for the sign language thing that I think they're gonna pepper these flashbacks through the whole.
Oh sure, no, no. Like I said, I have nothing against it. It's just one of those things where like it's weird how like occasionally Star Wars will decide to like start to walk on eggshells and nothing happens. To this day, I still find it fascinating that like, oh God, John Boyega as Finn is a janitor. Like, and they never received any backlash from that. Like, we are 6 years removed from The Force Awakens, still not a like iota of backlash. And I'm just like, okay, like, clearly the fandom decides to be quiet about, and the media decides to be quiet about certain things.
Well, I mean, you can't really try and like that whole movie's just full of absurdities. Like, oh, is he a janitor? Because I believe he's deployed as a soldier in the very beginning of the movie. So like, why are you even telling me he's a janitor?
But he's the one who admits it though. That's the weird thing where it's like he's just like because like what Han Solo asked him like what was your responsibility here?
Because that would be a funny answer, but they forgot that they showed him deployed as a soldier.
You could have said radar technician, and it would have been funny.
Oh, no, that's Kylo Ren's position.
Yeah. I know, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't think they're walking on eggshells with the. You did.
Chris,
like
a Star Wars video game had a trailer, and like 36 minutes later, it was canceled by like everybody.
There's been no announcement on that yet, but
officially.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if they were gonna capitulate immediately, we might have heard something. I don't think there's not even a.
It's gonna be like everything else. It's just gonna dissolve over time. They don't have to cancel it. It's gonna fall apart on its own.
Do you think they would have at least made like a text post on StarWars.com being like, we hear this preposterous internet riot without using that word. We're gonna look into it.
Internet riot.
We're gonna look into it, and they could have just left it at that, but they haven't said anything because I think they've spent too much. I think the issue is that like think about that like oh God, basically licensing out Star Wars for a video game. That's a big old check they get for having to do practically nothing. And so if they were to sit there pull the license, they have to return that money. And like I said, who knows? There might be some like level of it's just like I would imagine Lucasfilm is not keen to do that. So I imagine they're hoping it blows over. But like we kind of talked about it a little bit last night. It was that notion of it's weird when like, oh God, Lucasfilm employees are throwing cousins of the department like under the bus. I was feeling very annoyed that day when her name keeps escaping me, but she's written probably 5 canon novels.
That just got released yesterday. For those of you who can put the pieces together.
But you know, I got in on the reply threads on that, and I'm like, since when do you guys hold Disney to this level, this standard, right? Like you're talking about a company that literally made Finn smaller on the Chinese poster for The Force Awakens. The standard that you're trying to hold them to has never been held by them.
I don't think it's a standard thing. I think it's like what happened back in the day. It comes back to the question that like, oh God, Russ remembers when I used to ask this like on oh God, a quarterly basis. I'm like, now that Jason Ward is gone, like who's in charge of the professional fandom? I'm like, who's making those decisions? Who's like launching the campaigns to torpedo things or people? And clearly somebody's doing that. They're just they learned the lessons that he didn't of hide, be the puppet master, because clearly someone wants this to die. So because you wouldn't get this level of organized reaction.
I think it's a psychological compulsion, but I don't know if it's that organized.
I think it is. Like, okay, if it weren't for the fact that like 5 years ago it was extremely organized, and that power structure collapsed, and as we've learned from the book of Boba Fett, that the vacuum is pretty filled immediately. Like I said, you don't have. Like I said, it was weird. Like that trailer gets released, and like 6 days later, every person in the professional fandom in the span of like an hour and a half had a tweet ready and like about it. It was so weird that like, and there was no art like outside of one article. There was really nothing explaining what was going on. And that article came like hours after like this weird campaign like began. And like I said, all these tweets denouncing it from the professional fandom and these like quasi Lucasfilm employees, yet like fan affiliates, all like happened at once. And that doesn't happen organically. Like not everybody has their tweet waiting in the span of like 30 minutes. Like there's usually a snowball effect, and there wasn't. And that used to happen a lot in the Jason Ward days, where like everybody had their thing, like, oh God, like his podcast, like his wife had a podcast, and they all would just wait, and they'd all hit like the publish button at the exact same time because they wanted to get like that like SEO traction, SMO, like oh God, the algorithm would sit there like pick it up.
Well, I love a good conspiracy though, but is this a Disney competitor that has aligned all these forces to do this, or a video game competitor, or is this something internal where they got to find a way to get out of something they know they're going to regret or something? It's interesting to look at it like that. I think enough attention to it like that. It's good.
Well, like I said, it's funny. Like I remember this was 2+ years ago when like Zenger, Rob, and I were talking about this, and we were in Zenger's like, I know Zack's convinced there's like an anti-Star Wars cabal, but there is, like, you still have the fandom menace people that, like, I'm not kidding you, are mad because there's no Reek in the flashback sequence in episode 1. They're for some reason they are legitimately mad that there's not like a space dinosaur like in the arena. Like, and then you also have like, everybody has to realize too that like, as much as like, oh God, the cultural zeitgeist has ignored the High Republic, like in these very, okay, let me use the correct terminology here, the progressive wing of the fandom that more or less has, no, I don't want to say faded out, but like they're still there, but like after the last, like after they kind of like don't have the fandom menace to fight anymore over like the sequel trilogy and The Last Jedi, they very much gravitate toward the High Republic. And I think that clearly the people, again, that very specific segment or sect of the fandom didn't like that this studio was working on a High Republic game because they see the High Republic as their Star Wars.
Oh, this is very interesting. You kind of wonder, like, I'll be honest, a lot of High Republic stuff has come out, and just personally, it's like I don't feel like it's for me yet. Like, I don't really, nothing has engaged me enough to want to get into it. But of course, I'm still very into Star Wars. There's very much a lot of Star Wars for me. We're sitting here talking about a lot of it tonight, but I understand now. Now you're putting the High Republic in a perspective that makes sense of why it was created and why it continues. Thank you.
And that goes back. Well, you're welcome, Russ. But that goes back to even the thing that happened like almost 2 years ago, where they had like all those behind the scenes videos. Where they had like it was like a dry erase board and had all these like buzzwords on it, and it's like Star Wars without the wars, and it's like all this stuff that like, and it's like, oh, like they're trying to make Star Wars into Star Trek.
Let's remember there was dinosaurs and dragons on that board, so they didn't consciously leave the Reek out of that flashback. It was either a basic oversight or a cost saving measure. It's not a conspiracy.
They're not cutting a check to Daniel Logan and Reek. Get over it. Only one's getting it.
The Reeks people are very tough negotiators. But yeah, like, no, I think what it comes down to is that very, very vocal minority in the fandom is, like, again, they've latched onto the High Republic, and clearly a lot of the names I had not seen like since like pre-Rise of Skywalker showed up when like, oh God, was it like Blackout Eclipse was trending like how many weeks ago? It was because like those people were kind of just like lying in wait. They were waiting for something to rally around. And like, again, those people like from back in the day, again, I haven't used this term in a while, but the Star Wars podcasting cartel, they're still around. Like there was too much money to be made off this. And for the same reason why that like, oh God, there wasn't a lot of Knights of Vader content in 2020 and 2021 was because there wasn't a lot of Star Wars just stuff happening. Think about it. Like there were people during the sequel trilogy era that were making a living off publishing numerous articles a day. And then like once that dries up, there's nothing. So like there is a financial benefit to like causing a as Chris coined, an internet riot.
Yeah, I gotta say, it affected my wife. Recently came up to me. She goes, "I just saw an article popped up on Google. It says the fans all hate the Boba Fett show." She's like, "I don't understand. We just is that true?" She asked me. She's like, "Is it true? Does everyone hate the Boba Fett show?" I was like, "No, it's just a clickbait article. It's just a no, not at all. Like these are the things that are gonna make it to the top because these are things people will click because you'll go, oh no, really?" But no, and yes, that hate train is always going to be there, and we've tried to rail against it on this before. I don't think there is a way to do that. It is too big. There's too much money to be made off of.
But I think
doing that.
I think the difference there is that there's like clickbait is clickbait. I get that. Like that's social media optimization, search engine optimization. Like it's there. Like you said, Russ, it's not going away. I think there's a difference between like a headline, like you said with your wife, about like, oh, like everybody 10 reasons why that book of Boba Fett's the worst thing to happen to Star Wars, versus we're going to try to get this video game canceled. There's one thing of fanning the flames. There's one thing trying to literally try to take something out. There's a difference. Like there's like a level of malevolence that is very off-putting. And I think that's the problem. And again, it's been there for years now. That's why God is Russ doesn't know, but Chris does. Like why the podcast is no longer the Star Wars Junk Podcast. There are players out there that very much want Star Wars realized in their image, and weirdly enough, it's not the people that were trying to burn Rian Johnson at the stake.
Well, the other thing you have to also think about too is you have a lot of people that are invested in that Knights of the Old Republic game. And if EA loses its license, guess what? That gets pulled. Same thing that Sony got its license pulled when Star Wars Galaxy went under. A lot of people got a lot of money invested in that and a lot of time, and they got their characters the way that they want it. So if that gets pulled and that gets retired, then guess what? You got a lot of upset people. So I think it's more of a fans rallying around trying to cancel something new so they could keep what they have, instead of going and spending more money on another game that they're going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on in order to get their gear and everything like that, because it's going to be obsolete. And then the people that were playing it with them aren't playing it now because they got the new Star Wars game.
Now, if they could somehow join forces with the Muppet people from Muppet Vision who want that to stay, that could really be a force to be reckoned with at Disney. Yes, if we get the 5 families somehow, you got the first 2 ready.
He's got to get Frank Oz. He's the key. He's the Luke Skywalker at the end of The Force Awakens.
He is the rallying cry. He is the Emperor. He is Palpatine, Frank Oz.
Frank Oz, star of the Salvi's Workshop experience.
But you sit there and you look at it, and it's going to be it's like what is it? It could be the house of unfeasible Disney intellectual property. They could sit there and have the Muppets and any of the defunct Star Wars games and everything like that.
I've got a level 95 Fozzie Black Chekhov's Jedi Wookiee. I'm not messing this up, man.
Exactly. I've been playing this game for 10 plus years. You're going to take it away from me.
All right. Anything else, you two? Joe, do you have any specific insights on this episode?
Well, I think it's going to be good, but the one thing that's leading me into like nausea is hopefully that this Tusken Raider piece of the Book of Boba Fett actually realizes to something towards the end, because if it doesn't, then why show it? You're investing more than half the screen time so far in the first 2 episodes to Tusken Raiders. If they don't show up at the end to do something, or if there isn't any greater purpose of him becoming the overlord of Mos Espa, then what was the purpose of showing those flashbacks? So I'm kind of thinking that they're going to be doing something towards the end where he's going to have them be his enforcers or something like that. Another great point that everyone was mentioning in the podcast so far is everything is very, very, very heavy on the unused. What was it? The unused Macquarie art.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that you're going to see a lot more of it, and I think that you're actually going to see the female Gamorrean guard in the Book of Boba Fett. I'm timestamp
Yeah, I'll post that on our Instagram this week because I meant to do it last week.
because she was in a yellow dress, right?
It's a fine image, yeah.
Yes, and she has a very subtle tattoo of Macquarie above her left bosom.
Exactly. You're going to see it. It's going to be the black pumpkin. It's going to be on her bosom right there. Right when she's getting getting some frogs.
Yeah, and I'm so annoyed by these the black pumpkins really growing underground. Like, there's no vine connecting them. How do the seeds sort of get all spread out?
It's moisture farming. This with those machines pulled up black pumpkins. That's how they got the water.
Yeah, but where they keep the husks of the black pumpkins, that's what I want to know. Do they put them back in the ground, and do they get more water? That's the science that they need to do. I think there's going to be a
blue milk out of them.
They had a great opportunity to capitalize on more. It's like the sign language thing. They could reference some specific historical culture that buried their water out in the desert. And they could have got brownie points for referencing that. But no, instead it's just some weird thing that grows underground. All right.
It's space fruit.
Never mind the superior theory I put forward.
Yeah, you get to dig for them at Disney World in a couple of years. Yes, here you go. You want a water? $5? No, go find it.
Go dig. If you find more than one chair.
Yeah, whoa. No sharing. You get one. That's it. You can't take two.
I think it's going to be one of the big things that you're going to see this summer is you're going to see a bunch of people digging sand on the beach, trying to look for the black pumpkin. That's going to be awesome. And we should start the hashtag of it now. Find your black pumpkin.
Yeah, it'll be like geolocating or geocaching, geopumpkining, we'll call it.
Instead of crypto coins, you can have black melons.
Fantastic.
You can monetize it.
Like I will instantly die and begin rolling over. If that happens. But real quick, my final take on this episode: Black Chrysanthemum, good. The twins, good. Madame Garza and Sanctuary, her establishment, good. Tusken Raiders getting a little bit boring, dare I say it. And then just because I got Zack here, I'm gonna inject my most recent Star Wars collectible pickup real quick. So I recently just got this Canadian micro collection 1982 Imperial TIE Fighter with its original Canadian box with some French writing on there.
Very cool.
And it has a button where you break it and it smashes up just like Moff Gideon's TIE Fighter.
I own that, not in the box, but I have a loose one, and they're very cool and fun to play with. I have X-Wing too. There it is. Yes, it's very cool.
And it's got a nice little die-cast TIE Fighter pilot inside that can die and crash. Okay,
I'm going to need that one. I don't have the guy.
Yeah. So that's awesome. If collecting vintage Star Wars is cool, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's definitely the best stuff. It's slightly cooler than collecting modern.
Did you pre-order any of those new vintage collection Boba Fett stuff, like in the cardboard box?
The droid stuff, or what are you talking about?
No, the new book of like Boba Fett. Like, it's not just Book of Boba Fett. Like, there's some Mandalorian ones in there. Like, it's like Hasbro's new like plastic-less packaging, where like it's like a little cardboard thing. It's like the old like Walmart's. I think it was Walmart used to do that.
I'm not crazy about that. They're probably going to go to that design. I think you're still going to see the regular carded vintage collection figures for a while. I don't think that's meant to replace it because they have some added accessories. They give you about 3 microns more plastic in there to charge you $10 more. So it's not quite a regular figure. But I think the thing that might sort of backfire with them with those is that a lot of vintage collection collectors buy one to open and one to keep carded. And I see very little interest in keeping something like that sealed because you're effectually looking at a picture of the thing that you bought for the whole time that you own it.
And I want to say, you, Chris, suggested how great that Lando was. For Christmas this year, I got the vintage collection Lando and Emperor, the Smiling Emperor, both given to me. And I plan on opening both of them. They'll both hang out in my cantina, my Jabba cantina.
Excellent. And also, if you don't already follow the Knights of Vader Instagram, check out KOV Podcast on Instagram, where you can see me messing around with other outrageous modern figures like the new Death Star droid from the vintage collection,
which looked great. That was a great image you took of that new Death Star droid. And I like this episode of Boba. I'm excited. I do think that my big question is, first I was like, why is Boba strutting around as if he has some kind of enforcers when he's got Fennec Shan and a couple of pig guards, but he might have more behind him than we think. And I could see this. He could have a tribe of enforcers, and that this could be some kind of weird war. He gets in with the Sub-Zero ninjas and the twins. Are they going to go to space at any point? I thought this was Star Wars. I know I'm saying it again, but
It's going to be a reimagining of the final Andor battle, but instead of Ewoks, it's going to be Tusken Raiders, and instead of the Empire, it's going to be the Twins army versus the Tusken Raiders, who just pop out of the sand out of nowhere. It's going to be a wild time.
Sold.
I love it.
I'll take that. And I want a toy so badly of our new favorite Star Wars character, where I'm taking a very long time to do it so I can look up his name. Black Coruscant. I want him. Coruscant. I want him. I want him as a toy now.
Well, in the meantime, you should get a 1996
and a Chewbacca.
Shadows of the Empire Chewbacca in disguise as Snuva, because that looks pretty close.
I know that figure.
He's got a different bandolier. We need the new guy. We need Dark
Exactly.
Chekhov's Wookiee. Yes.
It's like, Mom, can we have this figure? It's like, we have this one at home. No, it's not the same. It's not the same, Mom.
I can't believe I was that close to a ride. Have you ever seen Chewbacca?
Alrighty, folks. Russ, when you're not on this podcast, what are you up to?
You can catch me on the Unbelievers podcast. We've got a bunch of episodes you can listen to. We're on a little break for the holidays still, and I clipped something we didn't bring up, and I know it's the end, but we're not. But I just have to play it. I'm gonna be very rude as I leave and just say,
"Hey, Ichuta, how rude!" Oh boy, Joe, anything to share with us before we end this episode?
No, can't wait to see how the third episode shakes out. Looking forward to it. It's a pretty decent show so far, but just hopefully it pans out in the end.
All right, so just slightly better than the Bad Batch, in your opinion.
Actually, it's I would say I actually get up wanting to watch the Book of Boba Fett instead of, I think we're going to be talking about it this week. Oh wait, we're not. Then why did I watch that?
Fair enough. Alrighty, and when I am not on this podcast, you can find me occasionally on Cinemoddities, where this month we're kind of playing cleanup from the last couple series. We're doing Spider-Man No Way Home, Matrix Resurrections, and there's some other stuff sprinkled in there. Monday we had our Wild Wild West episode come out, Wicked Wicked Wild, and there's some other episodes too that will be things that we've mentioned a lot but never specifically covered, including a Jordan Peele Twilight Zone episode that Chris was a part of. 3 hours of his life that he will never get back, as he profusely nods into the camera. Chris does not disagree. Alrighty, folks. Good night, but not goodbye. And as always, may the force be with you.